Hey guys, it's Vicky, and today I am here to talk about the books that I read in January. How did I kick off 2019? Let's find out. Okay, so the first book I read in 2019 in the month of January, unfortunately, was a disappointment, and that was A Simple Favor by Darcy Bell. This is a thriller that deals with two women, Stephanie and Emily. Stephanie is a widow. She's a blogger, and she has this friend Emily who is very glamorous and works for like a fashion designer, and just kind of has this like aura about her that Stephanie's just really drawn to. She's borderline like obsessed with this woman, and their kids are friends, so then they kind of become friends. And one day Emily asks Stephanie to pick her child up from school, and so she does, and then Emily disappears. So that's the gist of the story. Unfortunately, I didn't like this book. To start with, I felt like the twist and the whole kind of plot, so I can't really talk about it because it would be spoilery, was just too like unrealistic to me. I felt like the motivations with the characters were just dumb, for lack of a better word. I just wasn't buying it. I felt like the character Stephanie was written like a teenager. When I was reading her, I felt like I was listening to a teenager. If she described someone as hot one more time, I was gonna reach through the page and smack her. She just did not come across to me as a widowed mother. I could not stand her character. So overall, I just think that that book was not very good. I don't think I would even recommend it. I did watch the movie with my book club though, and I'm going to do a Flicks and Lit about that, so stay tuned for that. But as far as the book is concerned, I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. So next up for my January reads, I did my jar challenge for the first time, and the book that I chose because of my jar challenge was The Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling. This is a children's classic. It's a collection of 7 short stories. Most notably, there are 3 in here dealing with Mowgli, the man cub, which is what the like Disney movie, The Jungle Book, the cartoon, is based off of those stories. And I liked this. It wasn't amazing. However, what I found surprising and I was very pleasantly surprised by was that the story in here, Rikki Tikki Tavi, I loved the cartoon Rikki Tikki Tavi when I was little, and I had no idea that it was a short story, A, written by Rudyard Kipling, and B, that it was part of the Jungle Book. So that was a really nice surprise, and I really loved that story. That was definitely my favorite of the 7 stories. The Mowgli stories, there were 3 of them in here that were good. I liked them as well. It has all the characters that you know from the cartoon. Obviously Mowgli, you have Baloo the bear and Bagheera, or should I say Bagheera? Yeah, Bagheera the panther. Yeah, they were fine. There were 2 stories in here though that I thought were kind of boring. I didn't really care for. So I would say definitely pick this collection up. If you really loved The Jungle Book, because it's just kind of fun to revisit that story and kind of its origins, and also obviously for Rikki Tikki Tavi because it's a great story. So yeah, I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. So the first 2 books of January we were kind of off to a interesting start, to say the least. But then I picked up The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. Who did this turn my month around, guys? This is a historical fiction book that is set in France during World War II, during the Nazi occupation of France, and it deals with 2 sisters, Isabel and Vianne, and their experience. And wow, to start with, the very first sentence in the book kind of got me, you know. I'm going to read it to you. It says, "If I've learned anything in this long life of mine, it is this. In love, we find out who we want to be. In war, we find out who we are." So yes, very thought-provoking sentence there. And this book was so good. It was so good. I loved, to start with, that it was a story about France, because personally, I've never read a World War II story that took place in France. So this was all new to me. It was very interesting. I loved the two sisters and the ways in which they differed at the beginning of the war and the way that they approached the war. Vianne approached the war with a lot of fear. And she just wanted to kind of keep her head down and get through it for the sake of her daughter and also for her husband, who was a prisoner of war over in Germany. She just wanted everyone to be safe, and she just wanted to kind of live under the radar. And then you had Isabel, who was pretty much the opposite. She was very angry about the war, and she wanted to fight the Nazis and do whatever she could to kind of like give it to them. And by the end of the war, they both, in their own way, were very brave, courageous, amazing women. Their stories were just so heart-wrenching and just wow. I loved that this book centered around the women of the war, because a lot of times when you read about war, you talk about the soldiers, the men, because obviously they lived through some crap too. But this is all about the women and the things that they had to endure while the men were away dealing with their own stuff. And so it was very interesting. And by the end, it happened, you guys. This book had me crying. It's been a long time since a book has made me cry. This book made me cry. It just, oh, it's because it's such an emotional ride. You're with these women, seeing what they've been through, and by the end, it's just very emotional. I loved this book. I couldn't recommend it more enough. I know it's very long. It's like 560 pages, but it's such an easy, digestible book. You get so immersed in the story. Love it. Love it. I'm so excited that here in January, the third book I've read this year is already a 5-star read. Yes, 5 stars for this. Definitely check it out if you haven't. The next book that I read in January was another thriller. That is No Exit by Taylor Adams. This was my December pick for Book of the Month. And this was a pretty fun ride, guys. This book deals with a young woman who is on her way to see her dying mother, and she gets stuck in a really, really bad snowstorm, and she stops at a rest stop kind of for the night to kind of wait out the storm. And there are a couple people there, and there is a van parked in the parking lot next to her, and when she looks in the van, she sees that there is a little girl in a cage. So the story is her trying to figure out how she is going to save this little girl. And it was a very intense story. There was some definitely like just high tension spots where like you're on the edge of your seat. It was very like page turning craziness. It's quite a thrill ride. However, I did have a few issues with some of the characters and some of the things that happened in the plot. As far as the characters go, right from the beginning, you kind of know who the van belongs to, and just the way that the author described this character, decided to write this character, I found it to be a little bit overkill, because it's like, okay, we know he's a bad guy. He has a child in a cage in his van. He's not a good guy. But he had to go on and make him as like disgusting and just gross as he possibly could. I mean, he's like constantly described as like smelling and having like and mouth breathing and having boils on his face and farting and just every like disgusting thing that a human being, like physical qualities, could have, this person has. And to me it was just a bit much, because I think it was enough to say that he had this child. Okay, you didn't have to go on and then make him disgusting on top of it. It just was too much for me. I felt like it was almost to the point of like unrealistic, just how much this guy was just gross. Yeah, that part I wasn't a fan of. There were a couple of things in the plot, which I can't say because it would be spoilery, that I don't think would happen in real life. And as much as I love escaping from the real world sometimes with stories like this, though, I want them to be more grounded in reality. And there were a couple of things in this book that, upon doing a couple of Google searches, I was like, yeah, that could never happen, or yeah, that would very rarely happen, like it's almost impossible. So it kind of took me out of it a little bit. So I would still recommend it though. Like I said, it's a really fast-paced book. It's intense. I actually started reading it on a day that it had started to heavily snow here. So like I had the right atmosphere going. It was perfect. But I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. Next up I had, unfortunately, a DNF. I DNF'd The Heart by Melis de Kerangal. I made it about 40 or 50 pages in and just decided the writing was just not for me. I don't know if it was the translation or what, but super long sentences. I mean, like, holy semicolons, holy dashes. They're very abundant in this. I mean, this whole page here, I mean, it's a half a page, but, and going on to this next page, it's all one sentence. And I was trying to work through that because I wasn't interested in the story, but I just couldn't get past the writing. It just wasn't for me, unfortunately. It's very stream of consciousness, which I don't always dislike. Sometimes it works, and then for this though, for me, it just didn't. So I am going to be donating this to my library because I just have no desire to read it again or keep it. And because I DNF'd The Heart, I decided to pick up one more book because I had a couple days left in the month, and so I decided to pick up Bitch Planet Volume 2, President Bitch. This is by Kelly Sue DeConnick and Valentine Delandro. This is, like I said, the second volume in the Bitch Planet graphic novel series, and I can't say too much about the plot because it would be spoilery, but basically the gist of this whole series is that we're in like a futuristic society where men have completely taken over everything, and they have decided and have built this prison on a whole completely different planet where they send non-compliant women. You can be non-compliant for various reasons, because of the way you look, because of your sexuality, because you're too, I don't know, outspoken, you don't conform, whatnot. And they send these women to this planet and are in this prison where they are not treated very well. They're forced to do very horrible things, Hunger Games type things, I'll just say. Not cool. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about the plot. But it's really good because it's so, like, socially, I don't want to say relevant, but some of the topics here, when you're reading it, you're like, okay, I know this is like fiction and that we're talking about like this like kind of dystopian society, but you feel like, okay, this could maybe happen someday, especially the way in which our politics are going lately. It's yeah, it's kind of scary. But yeah, I love the themes touched on in here about femininity and just about patriarchy in general. And yes, it's really good. I also really like the illustration style. The color palette is really cool. Yeah, this one ended on a cliffhanger, so I'm going to be anxiously waiting for the next volume to come out. I don't even know when it's supposed to come out, but yeah, this is good, and you should definitely check it out if it sounds like something you would like, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Okay guys, so those are all the books that I read in January. It was kind of a toss-up month. It was very mixed bag, but a good one. Like I said, I'm so thrilled that I had a 5-star read there. Wonderful. Despite the 2-star read and a DNF, I had a 5-star read, and it was quite the 5-star read. So please let me know down below what you guys read in January. How did you start off your new year of reading? Have you already started to complete some of your goals? Please, I want to hear all about it. But other than that, I hope that you guys had a great month and that you are having a great week. And I will talk to you very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.